Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you all another Market Watch episode. So it turns out the ban list is taking a little bit longer to get here than we were expecting. I thought it was going to come out sometime last week, but here we are on September 10th with no list still. The market itself is also at a bit of a standstill, with people a bit hesitant to commit to certain decks or cards without seeing an updated list. There is still a bit of movement here and there, with people looking at specific cards and techs that might potentially be good soon, but we haven't seen too many crazy huge leaps. So today what we're going to do is discuss some of these slight shifts while we wait for the ban list together. Let's get started. First up, let's talk about the one thing that absolutely everyone has been really hyped up about, and this is the Dark Magician Girl Lost Art promo. So initially, I remember people buying these for around the $40 mark and thinking that that was a bit high to be paying for a Lost Art card right off the bat. However, we're now seeing the card moving at around $80 a piece, which is absolutely insane for a card that you get for free by just spending $30 on sealed product at your local OTS. Now, of course, with everything going on right now, it's not the easiest thing for people to just go to their locals and pick one up. And with Dark Magician Girl easily being one of the most iconic and popular cards in the game, it should come as no surprise that the card is in high demand. I think that the expectation here is that with these Lost Art cards, this is the only way that these cards will be available here in the TCG, and with this card, it's not like it's a small bit of censorship going on, it's actually just a completely different piece of art from any other TCG version of the card. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see this card hit the $100 mark by the end of September, as people seem to really be getting on buying out these collectible cards earlier on in their life cycle. I guess my one big concern would be that even though they aren't going to be released in other products, I could definitely see Konami making certain Lost Art promo cards available again at a later point in the future, where we're getting the exact same card re-waved and with a greater quantity available on the market. Even with a card like this, it would be sure to drive the prices back down. So overall, if you were planning on picking up this card already anyways, you may as well get it now, because I'm definitely expecting it to go up in price moving forward. However, if you're planning on investing in it to sell, say like 5 or 6 years down the road, I might just be a little bit skeptical about it, just in case it does see that random rewave a few years down the road. Next up, let's take a look at Triple Tactics Talents, which we talked about a few weeks ago. I believe we were discussing how quickly the card was falling from being up at the $80 to $90 mark on release to it trending down towards the $60 price point. Well, now we're actually seeing a bit of a rebound, as Talents is roughly $70 a piece now. This isn't a huge surprise. Talents has some broken effects turning into either Pot of Greed, Change of Heart, or Delinquent Duo. Most notably, the Change of Heart effect doesn't target, so this card is actually able to end games on its own if you manage to steal your opponent's copy of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. Personally, I'd be a bit reluctant to pay this full $70 price tag for a single copy now, but I think that if you can get away with paying around $160 to $170 a set, that isn't horrible, given that there's a really solid chance that once events start back up again, this card will probably see another bit of a bump up in price. The card is still really solid, even though it's not as common as something like Infinite Impermanence or Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which we're seeing in like absolutely every deck. It will still see play depending on the format and how the meta shapes up. Now obviously take these price points with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Because we don't know when we're going to be able to play at a regional or a YCS again, but we shouldn't expect this card to be reprinted until the 2021 Megatons, so decide for yourselves accordingly. Next up, Rusty Bardish is a really interesting one. I generally try not to talk about banned cards all that much on Market Watch, since a lot of the time it's pretty silly speculation, but this one is actually a little bit more reasonable. With Phantom Rage coming out at the end of this year, we're going to be getting a bunch of new Phantom Knight support cards that apparently help to make the archetype a lot stronger. I believe that in the OCG, Bardish is still at 3, and despite that, the Phantom Knights aren't a meta-relevant strategy over there at all. Because of this, people probably feel like Rusty Bardish can come back to at least 1 here in the TCG with minimal consequence, and that's actually somewhat reasonable because it would definitely help to generate additional sales of Phantom Rage. Personally, however, I don't really see this happening. I think that Bardish is way too powerful of a card to come off the list. It generates you way too much free advantage, effectively allowing you to grab 2 interactions with double Fogblade out of your deck. On top of that, it's incredibly easy to make with cards like Cherubini and and Galatea running around still. But yeah, apparently some people think that it's fine. Bardish was a card that was only 25 to 50 cents or so before, but it's now all the way up at $4 each, which seems like a lot, but isn't too unreasonable actually for a card that could potentially come back and only has one ultra rare printing available. It's probably fine if you guys hold on to the card. Even if it isn't unbanned on this list, we're likely to see this card pop up on people's predictions lists here and there and generate some hype periodically. I just wouldn't want to buy into too many copies of this card, especially at anything more than a couple of dollars. On a related note, we're looking at another Phantom Knight card here. This is the Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves. So a lot of the different Phantom Knights cards, things like Silent Boots and Fogblade, all have multiple holo printings available, so even if you want to bling out Phantom Knights for when they're released here, that should be relatively easy to do for the most part. The one piece that will be a little bit more difficult to find is super rare copies of Ragged Gloves, which has very few quantities available left on TCG Player at the moment and currently sits at $9 a piece. It is the only holo version, and this card is from OTS Tournament Pack 2, so a relatively old set by now. This is an important piece of the Phantom Knight deck, allowing you to banish it to dump any Phantom Knight card from your deck to the graveyard, and since most of the cards in the archetype can banish themselves from the graveyard in order to activate their effects, this essentially allows you to toolbox out any card from the strategy. If you're looking to bling out your Phantom Knights, I guess you will want to pick up this card, though realistically I wouldn't be looking to pay more than $4 to $5 a piece for it. I'm sure that as people become aware of the price spike, we'll gradually see more and more copies listed back onto the market, which will naturally drive the price down. This is just a price bump that I think you guys should be aware of because this card was sitting at under $1 or $2 for the longest time, so it's definitely a card for you guys to see if you have any extra copies of it so that they can be moved. Speaking of hyped up cards, Spiritual Water Art AoE is a card that saw a pretty significant price jump over the last little while. It has a market price of only $2.50, but the cheapest near mint copy available on TCG Player at the moment is about $7. Spiritual Water Art is actually a really good card, allowing you to tribute any water monster to look at your opponent's hand and send a card from their hand to the graveyard. This is very similar to the effects of DD Designator and Appointer of the Red Lotus, both cards that have seen a bit of hype recently. Obviously, this card being a trap makes it pretty slow, though depending on what deck you're playing, it should be fairly easy to have a water monster up on the field in order to tribute it. I actually think it would be really funny if your opponent dropped Gameciel on you and then you flip this card on them, especially because kaijus are seeing a bit more hype because of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. I think that another factor is the fact that we are getting the Charmer Structure deck coming out here in the TCG in about a month and a half, and even though this card was reprinted in the deck in the OCG, it's the only holo version of the card available, and it came out way back in Astral Pack 2. Definitely a really cool card, though to be honest, I don't know how much play this card is going to see moving forward. From what I've seen so far, the Charmer Structure deck isn't going to be especially competitive, so I think that you might be better off moving your holo copies of this card to someone who is really dedicated to the Charmers, who wants to bling out their deck and is willing to pay up to do so. Another card that is pretty falsely hyped up at the moment is Dark Spirit's Mastery, an ultra rare that came out in Legendary Duelist 5 Immortal Destiny. This card was pretty overlooked for the most part, overshadowed by Malicious Bane and Adusted Gold, which were released in the same set. In the OCG, this was a pretty useful card as it could be used to search out Grinder Golem to set up some crazy link plays, but unfortunately with Grinder Golem banned here in the TCG, it never actually saw any play. Supposedly, this card caught the attention of some people with the announcement of the Evil Twin archetype, as one of the main deck monsters is a level 8 fiend that is technically searchable with Dark Spirit's Mastery. Because of this, we did see a bit of a bump up in this card's price as it moved from $2 or so up to the $5 mark. Unfortunately, this hype just isn't going to last. The Evil Twin archetype looks pretty underwhelming so far, so it might just end up being Dragon Maids 2.0, an archetype that may be popular because of the card art, but not because it has any sort of meta relevance. This card isn't necessarily the worst pickup. It isn't expected to be reprinted until Legendary Duelist Season 3, and we aren't getting Season 2 until early in 2021, so it would be quite some time before this card were to be reprinted. Either way, I do think that this card is too hyped up for what it is, and I would expect it to fall back down to being $2 to $3 within a couple of weeks, assuming of course that we don't get any crazy new unexpected Evil Twin support announced before then. Now, I never thought I'd see the day today where I'm talking about an Ojama card on MarketWatch, but I guess it's the year 2020 and absolutely anything can happen, so we just had revealed to us retrained versions of the Armed Dragon theme, monsters from back in like Soul of the Duelist that depended on a rather gimmicky level up mechanic. The new versions of the cards are admittedly much better than the originals, though of course I don't think they're going to be top tier or even necessarily a good rogue option for that matter. However, they will be a really fun casual deck for people to play at locals. I think it would be really hilarious to cheese out games by people resolving something silly like Ojama Delta Hurricane. Anyways, the Ojama card that we're looking at here is Ojama Match, a card from Legendary Duelist Ancient Millennium that allows you to search for an Ojama and an Armed Dragon monster from your deck or graveyard, and then immediately after, normal summon one of those monsters. It's pretty cool because it provides you with an additional way to get a body on the board, and in this Ojama Armed Dragon hybrid, it's one of the few ways that you can search for Armed Dragon level 3 and actually get it onto the field right away. So because Ojama Match just has the one printing, we're currently seeing it at $2 a piece with extremely few quantities available on the market. We've seen random cards for rogue strategies get expensive out of nowhere before, cards like Amazoness Heirloom or Cyberdark Impact, but I don't think that Ojama Match is quite like that. If something goes really crazy, we'll see this card peak at $5 at most, but realistically it's still going to be a $2 card for the most part. Still something that's worth setting aside out of your bulk if you know where they are, but nothing that you guys should be freaking out about or over investing in. And finally for today guys, let's talk really briefly about Evenly Matched. This is an extremely powerful side deck card, and even though it hasn't seen play in every single format, it always seems to pop up as a side deck option, and that's for a good reason, right? As the card can absolutely be a blowout if you resolve it. The reason that I bring this card up is that the card was reprinted in the Charmer structure deck in the OCG, and I think people are speculating that the card is going to be reprinted in our structure deck here as well. Remember, we typically see several cards switched over when the structure decks are printed here, and if anything, I think that this card and Dark Ruler No More would be taken out of the deck here. They're each still relatively expensive, so Konami could definitely use them as value reprints in another product to build up some sort of hype, especially in something like Maximum Gold, which is coming out later this year. So Evenly Matched for the original Secret Rare first edition copies, you're looking at $30 a piece, but for any other version, so the tin reprint or the ultra rare, you're looking at closer to $20. This is actually relatively cheap because for a while, even the reprints were up at $30 or so, and I think that this speaks to the mentality of the player base around this card. This card is actually older than Dark Ruler No More, so it's certainly possible that Konami will hold off on reprinting Dark Ruler No More for a little bit longer, but give us Evenly Matched in order to help sell the Charmer structure deck. Now obviously I don't know for sure if this card is going to be reprinted. Personally, I would be holding on to just a playset of Evenly Matched, depending on your own preference. Now, if you have the original first editions and you're expecting to continue to want to play them, I would keep those and move any excess copies that you have, since the original first edition print will generally be the highest rarity and retain the most value over time. If you want just any version so that you can use it, you may as well just keep the ultra rares, but hold on to just your set and move all of your extra copies, because the lower rarity versions will almost certainly tank in value as soon as the reprint for the card is leaked. I think that between the structure deck and Maximum Gold, Evenly Matched has been too popular of a card over the last couple of years for it to go that much longer without another reprint. So this is definitely the type of card that you should hold onto your playset of for your own use, so that you have it available just in case it doesn't get reprinted, but move all of your extra copies of in anticipation for that reprint that will tank this card's price down. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. Not a ton of huge changes on the market, but the cool thing about Yu-Gi-Oh is we are getting so many different products throughout the year, and with all of the stuff that's being leaked or speculated about, we're always going to see some small shifts here and there that keep us on our toes. That's why it's important that you guys should stay tuned in and pay attention to the market so that you guys know what cards you guys should be keeping an eye out for and what you should be looking to get rid of. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. It does help out a ton. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what else is going on with the market so that I can potentially cover the cards that you guys mentioned to me in a future episode to keep all of you guys as informed as possible. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest content from both Tombox and myself. And yeah, so until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST. MST.TV.